Okay, we're here with Laura Wells, who is the Green Party for the U.S. Representative in District 13, and that covers Alameda County. Is that right, Laura?
It covers 7 cities in Alameda County. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I can list them there. The Berkeley and Oakland,
Uh-huh.
as well as Alameda, Albany, Emeryville, Piedmont, and San Leandro.
Excellent, excellent. And then, so you're a write-in candidate. You're running against Barbara Lee. Um, yeah, something I wanted to tell you was that you're a big reason I'm in the Green Party, and it was your arrest, as well as with Jill Stein when she was arrested trying to get into the debates. After Bernie Sanders had been cheated out of during the primary for the presidency, I saw that the two-party system was corrupt. And
Yes.
I said, how do we fight this system? And when I saw that you and Jill Stein had both been arrested for just trying to get into the debates, I said the Green Party must be the threat. They must be the threat to the two-party system. And I said, that's the best thing I could do is to join the Green Party. And, you know, you guys don't get the media, and that's what they wanted to keep you out of. And I said, we need to do media for the Green Party. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you're a large part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I really appreciate this interview.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, you never know what effects, just do the thing that's there for us to do. And we never know what the wide-ranging effects will be. Just keep doing it.
Yes, absolutely. And we got to plant the seeds, right? So we just got to do it, whether we see the results today or in a couple of years, or we just have to do those things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me that.
I think we wanted to focus on the two-party system. Did you want to give us your views on the political system the way it is, and why we should be green, run green, and vote green?
The two-party system, the problem with that is that it's very easy to buy them both. And that's what the billionaires and their corporations have done. They've bought both parties. And then the Democrats, they have a history of being on the side of the people, and they say a lot of the right things that people want to hear. The Republicans say a lot of things that people want to hear also. Be responsible for yourself, don't expect handouts, be upright, and all of that. I mean, but those are all words. They're all words. When the money comes from the billionaires and their corporations, who gives you money? That's your boss. And so whatever face people put on it, and there are some very nice and lovely faces and wonderful things that people say, but the boss are the billionaires and their corporations and the system that they want to keep in place. The two-party system is a very important part of that. And then what happens is that they convince everybody that the two parties are the only ones with the possible strength to make the changes that we want to make. So people in the Democratic Party don't want to vote. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans want to really stray from that. So you have the high 90s that vote for those of the people who vote at all. And that's one of the biggest cards that they hold, this system, I'll keep saying the billionaires and their corporations, that they hold, is that they are perfectly happy when everybody thinks the system is corrupt. Why bother voting? They just love that, Also, no party preference. I mean, all of us have this independent streak, They're happy when you stay registered Democrat, Republican. They're not so unhappy when you stay registered no party preference, but they're very unhappy, as you pointed out, when we register with the legitimate opposition. And the opposition of the Green Party is not just in what we say, the values of grassroots democracy and the environment and social justice and peace. It's not just what we say. It's that we don't take their money, so that when we get in office, whether it's the officials in Richmond, California, with the Richmond Progressive Alliance, who don't take any money from Chevron, any other corporation, any business, or any developer, they do what they say. They don't back down. And they don't just rely on their words, they act. And so that's the two-party system in a nutshell, is that they make you believe what Margaret Thatcher always said during the Reagan years: there is no alternative. Tina, that is the biggest lie that they're telling. There are lots of alternatives. And the Green Party, as you realized, because they arrest us, they do everything they can to shut us up, to keep us out of view, to all of those things, so that everybody can just believe, oh well, they're just these two parties, diminished expectations. I forget who came up with that phrase, but what they do is manage and diminish our expectations.
Wow. That's very that's the truth.
Can I throw in one more thing?
Sure.
Mike? The Democratic Party and the policies that they're promoting, that they are backing and giving their full support to, in a country in Europe, they would be called the Conservative Party. The conservative parties in Germany or France or England, and other countries, the conservative parties are the ones that would back not having health care for everybody, are the ones that back blaming the immigrants, are the ones that back high tuition. Look at California. It used to be free tuition, and now it's so expensive. Kids are in debt. Young people are in debt at age 21, 22. That is a civic, governmental, corporate crime. So here we've got the Conservative Party called the Democratic Party, and then we've got the arch conservative party called the Republican Party, and then we've got the Green Party. And the Green Party, no corporate money, no developer money, and the right values. It's not radical values. It's the values of California. It's the values of the United States. Those are Green Party values. And so then, and we can talk more about why vote green. What can we do to get the values we want of justice and the environment and peace and real democracy, where we make decisions that affect our own lives instead of having them be managed by the billionaires and their corporations.
Right. So that does lead to my question is, what do you say to somebody that says, yeah, but a progressive Democrat has a good chance to get in office, and we don't want to be spoilers. So what do you say to those people?
The progressive Democrats take the money. That's the problem. There are very few, although the trend of politicians choosing to take no corporate money is growing. Bernie Sanders was the biggest example because he ran for president and he took no corporate money. The Richmond Progressive Alliance, which I also mentioned, Gail McLaughlin was the mayor for 8 years. No corporate money, no developer money. At the city level, it's very important about the developer money. They're the ones that buy the politicians. And now Gail McLaughlin is running for lieutenant governor. No corporate money. Kshama Sawant up in Seattle with the Socialist Alternative. No corporate money. There are others. Greens never take corporate money. So the progressive Democrats, even some of the progressive Democrats have taken no corporate money, but they're lined up with a party that is totally funded. The Democratic Party has its billionaires and the Republican Party has its billionaires. Some of the same billionaires give to both parties because they don't want to be left out in the cold no matter who wins. That happens over and over again. And corporations give to both candidates because they want access. They are investing in those candidates. So the progressive Democrats, by playing as team players, they're playing for team Democrat. And they have to go along. I think a lot of them, I know Barbara Lee, for one thing, has beliefs and policies. She has a wish list that she's not going for because she has to play with her party. For example, healthcare. The Democrats had a majority. They had 60% in both houses. And they put single payer off the table. Single payer is Medicare for all. It's the health care that all the other wealthy industrialized countries, and 30 of them around the country, have, maybe except for one, except for this, the wealthiest country in the world. And they took it off the table, did not even consider it. And the progressive Democrats were not going to, they weren't going to go to bat for keeping Medicare for all on the table, but they were going to make sure that there was an option to use Medicare, a Medicare-style health care. They called it, what did they call it? The public option. Okay. And first it was like it was going to be a strong public option. Well, maybe not that strong, maybe sort of a medium. Okay, well, how about a weak public option? And they backed off on that. They folded on that, a weak public option. And Barbara Lee was one of the ones that folded. The last one that folded was Dennis Kucinich, and he had to be taken up in the presidential jet with Obama in order to toe the line with Team Democrat. But that's one example that hits. The reason I bring up healthcare, it affects every single one of us in this country, and some of us more than others. And people do, at the core, not want other people to be miserable and sick. And, we want people, you could say, hey, you could have health care for everybody, where everybody could get health care, and you would have really great health care too. People would say, yeah, sure, we want that. It affects everybody. But that's a great example, and it's pretty recent, about how the Democrats, with their majority, did not give people what they wanted. Do you think, I know they take a lot of money from the medical insurance, pharmaceutical, industrial complex, a lot of money. And so then what happened, Obamacare was like a bailout for the insurance companies. The insurance companies made a lot of money, and healthcare costs did not go down.
Right.
That's the problem with progressive Democrats.
Yes, I agree. That's a good description. Why? Absolutely.
Even though I do want to say, as individual people, their hearts are in the right place. It's just that the teams are not in the right place.
You think they succumb to the pressure of their caucus, basically?
Yes, and their caucus, the progressive caucus, succumbs to the pressure of their president or their governor. Governor, look at California, my goodness.
Right. And also, I think that their infrastructure is paid for by corporations, right? Yes. I mean, all of their media, all of their
meetings, their media, their means,
Right. So with that withheld, they wouldn't get the exposure, and they know that. So they have to conform.
Yes. And the media is part of that military, industrial, medical, insurance, pharmaceutical media complex.
Right. So that was kind of my next question, is what can we do, or how does the media play a role in the two-party system?
Well, they're backing it. They're the same people, actually. They are corporations. And again, I constantly want to say there's such a difference between the rank and file, the individual reporters who actually want to do, so many of them, some of them don't, I imagine, but so many of them want to do a good job. They actually want to get at the truth of what's going on. Just like rank and file Democrats. I will never, I hope, say anything that people think is an attack on rank and file Democrats. Democrats, or even rank and file Republicans, my goodness. But when we're talking about the institutions, That's a very different thing. We've got to somehow not support those institutions because they're owned by, the last I heard, it was 6 corporations owned of the vast majority of the media.
Right.
And it's reaching down into where the local media used to be more accessible, more open, more truthful, less fake, all of that. And they're owned. Their stories are piped in from their national syndicates. And one paper looks just like the other. Here in the Bay Area, I live in Oakland. You look at the Oakland paper, it looks just like the San Leandro paper. It looks just like the Walnut Creek paper. They have the same stories. They just rearrange the headlines a little bit. And so the media, so they're owned by these huge corporations, often conglomerates. And so the rank and file reporters edit themselves. Actually, they either get edited or they might get fired if they have to get overly edited. So they edit themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not just keeping the Green Party out, but it's keeping progressive issues out. For instance, Phil Donahue got fired for questioning the Iraq War, right?
Yeah.
You just don't get the real news objectively reported to us.
Right. When newspapers were bigger than they were even then, newspapers, the quarter or the $1.25 that you spent on the newspaper didn't pay for the paper it was printed on. The advertisers are who pay for the newspapers. The advertisers are are the ones that pay for the TV news. And TV used to be free. Now people are paying a whole lot of money for TV channels, and they're getting a whole lot of ads. And those ads are what's really paying for it. I know that when and a lot of ad revenue, TV ad revenue and other media ad revenue comes from campaigns, from the candidates during campaigns. And of course, they're not getting bundles of money from Green Party, no corporate money candidates. And so that's another reason that they're not all that interested. Studies have been done that showed how, particularly in women's magazines, they had to have articles that complemented the advertisers. They called it complementary copy. And if in women's magazines, so it was all about makeup and it was all about clothes and all of that, they had to have articles about those things right next to the advertisements. That's the same thing. So they have political complementary copy in the newspapers that are just like what the ads are about. It's all the same thing.
Right.
War.
Right. Exactly. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you about the elections. Do you think that there is election fraud, voter suppression in our current elections? Do you think that aids in keeping third parties outside of the process?
I think that they did a lot of that with Bernie Sanders in California. That was really sketchy, what they did with the June primary when Bernie Sanders was so strong. With Bernie Sanders, with everybody, however, the main thing they do is, there should be an acronym. GOTV is the acronym that in political circles you use for get out the vote. It's very, very important.
Sure.
So they have a do not GOTV, don't get out the vote, they do everything they can to discourage people from even thinking that their vote matters. It matters a lot. And how do you know that? Because they do everything they can to discourage people from voting. Look at Florida. Look at Florida. And Florida is where they, in the year 2000, when Gore, who had been the vice president under Clinton, ran against Bush, who had been the son of the prior president Bush. So that was the year 2000. Nader ran, And it was a very strong year for his run. He only got a few percent altogether. But the Democratic Party blamed him successfully for Gore's loss. You know, not a million other things, like Gore lost his own home state, lost Clinton's home state, didn't really fight for what the real problem was, which was voter suppression. And so that was an example of both voter fraud, voter repression, where they had a whole bunch of the main people, the main votes that were not counted were people who were falsely categorized as potentially felons, ex-felons from other states.
Right.
And that was like 50,000, 60,000 people, not a few butterfly ballots in West Palm Beach. This was tens of thousands of people, and Gore did not go for those votes. That's where the gold was. And Gore won, you know. Why didn't Gore become president? Because he didn't become president. He was elected, and not just the popular vote, he was elected on the Electoral College. So it's the structural things like that. Speaking of the Electoral College at the presidential level, that's one of the things. They don't have to do voter fraud. They just do this thing where a whole bunch of states don't even matter. There's just 6 states that they concentrate on, maybe 2 or 3 or 1. And so, that's voter suppression, and the suppression of the idea that it matters. The TINA, there is no alternative, is voter suppression, because 50% of people don't vote. Can I talk about the opportunity here?
Sure, please.
That we have in California and in this race, and there's actually another race that, look up Sadie Fulton. She's running in a similar situation. The situation is so closed down that people who are already in Congress or the legislature, the Assembly and Senate here in California, have a high 90s chance of running again, unless they have some outrageously sleazy sex scandal.
Right.
But it's almost anything, any votes they take or anything like that, they're hardly ever in any kind of danger, because primarily we don't have proportional representation. And people in other countries not only know what it is, they've used it for decades. People here don't really know what it is, and it's not their fault that they don't know what it is. But Barbara Lee is running unopposed. So she's running for Congress, District 13. And in June, on the ballot, nobody else is on the ballot. Let me show you the ballot. Here's a copy of the ballot. I think that you can see that. And this is what we're recommending. You can see, I think, that it says U.S. Representative Barbara Lee. And then there's a blank box underneath there. That's where she's running unopposed.
Wow.
And that's where write in Laura Wells and connect this arrow. We're telling everybody, write in Laura Wells and don't forget to connect the arrow, because then she'll have somebody running not from the right. Barbara Lee, let's say you love Barbara Lee. She's a wonderful person. Don't let her run against the right. She's already got way too much pressure from the billionaires and their corporations in the right wing in Washington and within her own party that she has to play on their team. And so she has to keep moving toward them. She has stopped backing some of the things that she strongly believes in her heart, and she won't back them. If she is running in November, and there's a very good chance that we as the Greens will win this race with our write-in votes. If she's running against a Green in November, there'll be pressure from the people's side. The terms left and right, are used, but it's the people's side. It's the people.
I think you hit your mic to. I couldn't hear you for a second, or we got a bad connection, maybe.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now you're back.
Okay, so I hope that I got the point across about people from the pressure from the people's side.
Right.
And so because in California, we have the top two primary. So if one person is running unopposed for a seat at the state or federal level, then the top write-in vote getter is on the ballot in November. So, and you have to go through a certain process in order to be a validated write-in candidate. If you write in Einstein the dog, and Einstein the dog hasn't filled in the forms, then his votes won't get counted. But if we've gathered signatures and we're turning them in and filling out the forms, and then that means that when they see Laura Wells written in on the ballot, here it is, when it's written in, then they will count it. And so we have a good chance. We put out, let me show you something else that I have.
Sure.
As this is the green voter guide. And so let's see, the green voter guide, and all a person needs to do is go to the web and put in green voter guide, Green Party voter guide green, anything like that. You will end up at the Green Party voter guide, which is put out by the Green Party of Alameda County. But it has a lot of information that's useful for everybody across the state for the June 5th primary. So I would encourage everybody to go to that. And it also has information about the initiatives, about the ballot initiatives that are statewide, as well as the federal offices and things like that, and a lot of other useful information, and of course, a lot of information about Alameda County itself.
Okay.
So we're hoping that with that voter guide behind us, with the, getting the word out and word of mouth, and just, Barbara Lee, what are the chances that she'll win in November? 99.99%, something like that. She'll win. Let's include alternatives in the conversation. Let's say, you know what? Great, Barbara Lee, wonderful. Come toward us. We will pressure you. It's like the good old FDR, where he reportedly said, and I don't know whether any Democrat has really practiced that since, or Democrat or Republican or anything other than Greens, but he said, great idea. People would come to him and say, well, do this, do this, do this, do this. He'd say, great idea, make me do it. So we've got to be there. We've got to just say, oh, well, they tried, well, look, I want to support them. I want to support her. I want to support, Barbara Lee, whatever, support her. Pressure her from this side. Pressure her. Let her know that you're not happy with her moving toward the right. Don't say, oh, I understand. I get it. The billionaires and their corporations, one of the things they do, you don't do what they want you to do, they pull their money. When people don't do as much as they can do, should do, when they're afraid, it's incredible. It's truly incredible. There's no reason actually for most of them to move toward the right, even just because of the pressure, because they'll win anyway, but they move toward the right because they start to align with them. They start to feel as if they are on the same side, and they're having their fancy parties and fancy meetings and all of that in Martha's Vineyard, and all of that they start running in those circles.
And they start to believe everything that they're telling them. So
the fake news reaches Congress.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So there's a good opportunity.
Well, it comes from there.
For the Green Party to make headway, get into the general election, and like you said, pull Barbara Lee, the Democratic Party, to the left. And that's an interesting concept. That is a good reason for voting Green and registering Green, is to pull Democrats to the left, that even if they win, at least they have that knowledge that there's pressure from the left, so that they push these progressive policies.
And that reminds me, the Peace and Freedom Party is in the process of endorsing my candidacy. And the Green Party of California has, for the first time in a dozen years, we changed our bylaws so that we are endorsing people at the state level, Peace and Freedom Party candidates.
Yes.
And so, and those, and they're mentioned in this Green Party voter guide. So but Peace and Freedom has been very helpful for my campaign. And Peace and Freedom are fairly close, very, very close, actually. Sometimes people say, why don't all the third parties get together? Well, we don't have the same values, but Peace and Freedom and Greens do have the same values. I mean, like Libertarian, we share some values, but they also think that corporations should do anything they want to be, should be able to do anything they want, including not pay taxes.
Right.
And they're very much against taxes, which it means that they're very much against the public sphere, libraries, parks, schools, clean air, clean environment. So the Peace and Freedom Party and the Green Party working together has been a true joy. In this campaign, I've seen it more than ever, and I love the fact that the Green Party is endorsing and supporting statewide Green Party Peace and Freedom candidates. Always at the local level, the county Green parties have been free to endorse Peace and Freedom, and they have over the years.
Right. Excellent. Okay. Hey, so let's talk about you a little bit. You're a master's in education, is that correct?
Yes, from Antioch University, which is a work study. It's sort of a real, where you're part of the real world while you're taking your studies.
Oh, interesting.
You're not just off in academia. You're studying and working on the ground. That's
gotcha. Good. And then you're a founding member of the Alameda Green Party?
Yeah, I was there. I became a Green in January of 1992. And that was exactly when the Green Party was on the ballot, because they had finished up the drive and had gotten on the ballot, and then I joined. So I was a founding member of the City of Alameda Green Party, and I was one of the first in the first county council, which is, other parties call it the Central Committee. We have a value of decentralization, and so we call it the county council. But I was one of the first elected. I was a write-in candidate. Actually, that was my first write-in victory, and I'm hoping
excellent.
This is my second. Because on the basis of, I think at that point, 6 votes in the city of Alameda, I became the internal officer, Green Party county councilor in 1992.
Okay, and then also in 2006, did you get instant runoff voting passed in?
I was one of the core organizing team. I don't even think we had an official name, but like the steering committee, there were a half a dozen of us, or a dozen, that were working on getting instant runoff voting in Oakland. San Francisco had gotten it in a year or so earlier. Berkeley had gotten it in a year earlier, and then Oakland got it in. And we got it in with something like 69% or 66%, some high percentage. And so, yes, we got that in. It was a great group of people. Don't you just love to be in an organization where people do what they say they're going to do?
Right,
where you have a meeting, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, and then people, it's one of the joys of life, and then people pretty much do it. Nobody's perfect.
Right, of course.
But so we got that to happen. It was IRV is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Rank your choices. I remember, right, the first time that it was implemented, there was a mayoral race in Oakland, and there was Don Parada, who had been in the legislature, and he was like a local Democratic Party boss in a way. He was the local kingpin of Democratic Party politics. And then there was Jean Quan and Rebecca Kaplan. So Jean Quan and Rebecca Kaplan were both closer in values than Don Parada. Don Parada got the plurality, but by the time they did the ranking, Jean Quan won, the first woman ever to be mayor of Oakland and the first Asian ever to be mayor of Oakland. And Don Parada was like, I don't get this IRV, I should have won. And I wanted to say, let me break it down to you real simple. The majority of people did not want you as the mayor. And that's what ranked choice voting allowed us to do, is to get the one with the values closest to the majority of the people. That's what it helps to do. But really, like I mentioned before, proportional representation, that's what most countries, something like, last I counted, and I think it's going up, it was 80 out of the countries in the world, 80 countries in the world use this thing called proportional representation. And so let me just give a little quick blurb about that. And that is when you have a race where you just have one seat in that legislative district, whether it's Senate or the House of Representatives or the Assembly or the Senate of California. When you have one person, then that's when the billionaires and their corporations, they just buy both, they just buy both teams and they've bought it. But if you group together 5 of those districts, and then you have people vote for their favorite candidates for those 5 district seats, then if the Greens, for example, get 20% of the vote, they've got somebody in the legislature. If the Libertarians get 20% of the vote, they have somebody in the legislature. In the Central Valley, where most of the legislators in California are Republican, you would have some Democrats. In the Bay Area, where most of the legislators are Democrats, you would have some Republicans. So you would have, they call it proportional representation, which means that you would be represented. But that is what is the can opener. That's the thing that opens the door for there to be viable, strong, multiple parties, so that somebody can say, well, really, I like the Greens. Of all of I do these little online quizzes of where do I stand or whatever they're called, and you end up Green, you would vote Green with absolutely that stupid lying, fake news word spoiler would mean nothing. And so in a combination of having proportional representation for legislative offices and ranked choice voting for instant runoff voting and others for the single seat offices like governor and mayor and things like that, you would have a democracy.
Yes. That's
one of my favorite.
I wanted to implement that word or input that word to which
democracy.
Closer to democracy than anything else, right?
One of my favorite Green Party bumper stickers or slogans early on was democracy. Great idea. When do we start?
Yes.
It's true now more than ever, unfortunately.
Yes, absolutely. And
start by using all the power of our vote. Vote, do register, do vote, and do vote green. Vote peace and freedom. Write in candidates,
And even become politically active ultimately,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Out there.
Yeah, it has its rewards. It has its frustrations, but so does everything. But it has its rewards. And what really, if we want a better world for ourselves and for our next generations, we need to organize. And as Frederick Douglass said, agitate. But it's like, how do you become strong? It's in solidarity. It's working with other organizations working together, people working together. That's why registering green or peace and freedom, registering with a political party is a stronger way to use the power that you have. Whatever power, use whatever power you have. Wallet power, be in the streets, go to rallies. Yes, 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 all of the above. The way to use your electoral power, vote every day of the year by registering in the party that most closely reflects your beliefs, not the Democrats, not the Republicans, and not the no party preference. Please, choose a party, because that is the way that you show you're independent, is by when you're registering green, you're saying, I am independent.
Right. Yes, I agree. So you're very qualified and you have a lot of accomplishments. You're a great candidate. How do people, do you have a website where people can help you out in terms of cash donations or money donations, and also help with your campaign or volunteer for your campaign?
My website is real easy. It's just myname.org. So it's LAURAWELLS.org. So that's Twitter is Laura Wells CA.
Okay.
So my name plus CA California at the end. Mm-hmm. And Facebook, you can find me by going to one or the other of those. I think, you can find, I'm there. But in terms of donations, the contribution that people can do right now that makes the most difference is find everybody that lives in Alameda, Albany, Berkeley, Emeryville, Oakland, Piedmont, or San Leandro, basically Alameda County, and send them an email saying, please write in Laura Wells, Congress District 13, U.S. Representative District 13, on your absentee ballot or on your ballot at the election thing. I'm not doing fundraising right now. There are some expenses, but not thousands of dollars to the state of California, which there are for if you run in and you're on the ballot. So write-in candidate is less expensive, and the expenses that there are, I'm just counting those as my activist expenses. And like, for example, whoops, I just did a little earthquake thing. Like this, buying this card that I keep showing people, that one, that costs not that much money. But again, contribution, the donation is, please ask people, this is word of mouth, and the publication of the Green Voter Guide and all of that stuff. But that is, and I also do want to say that I sort of forget, I take for granted that everybody will know that since I'm green, that I'm very strong on the environment. And there are so many things that we could do that we're not doing. And in terms of energy, in terms of pollution, in terms of the climate. And social justice is outrageously important. We have such a high incarceration rate in the US. And I think in California, the last I heard, the only entity that has a higher incarceration rate of people in prison than California was the U.S. So California is not this great, grand, and glorious golden state, and we've been run by the Democratic Party for decades. So social justice, stop putting people in prison. And we know who they put in prison. We know how they want to keep people down and separated and poor. Tax the rich is one of my longtime slogans. Prop 13 has some wonderful parts. Keep those parts, keep those parts. Keep everybody in their homes. Keep the people, the seniors in their homes. Yes, we can do a better job of that than we have been with Prop 13, and we definitely need to fix Prop 13. Tax the rich. Public banks. One of the things that I was very glad about, I ran for governor in 2010 as a Green Party candidate. That was when I was arrested outside a debate.
Yes.
Why? Because of the dangerous concepts of tax the rich, fix Prop 13 so that it is helpful to people, and get rid of the parts that have brought California on a long, slow, definite downhill slide. And public banking. That was when I'm glad that I ran for governor in 2010 for a number of reasons. And one of them is that a lot of people heard about the concept of a state bank because I ran as a Green Party candidate for governor. People heard about that then. And now Oakland may get a public bank. There are public banks all over. Ellen Brown wrote the book on public banking, and she ran as a treasurer in 2014, and I ran as controller. We sort of double teamed on the money positions in California. And my fantasy is that people liked the idea of these two women running the money in California, because she got a high percent, 6.6% of the vote, which is very high, running against Democrats and Republicans. And she had 3 people in her race. She got 6.6% of the vote. I had 6 people in my race. Like 3 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and me, and I got 5.7% of the vote, which given this sucky system was very high, and it could be much higher if we actually had the kind of system like proportional representation where the third parties, the multiple parties, we don't even call them third parties, multiple parties are at the table. And so public banking, invest in California, invest in your city, not in Wall Street. Stop letting Citicorp and Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo and Bank of America and Chase rip off our cities. It's outrageous the amount of money that their little devices, their little tools, their little credit swaps, and interest swaps and all that, how they're depleting the treasuries of our cities. So have public banks, have these alternatives, have restorative justice, stop putting so many young men in prison.
People of color, right?
Exactly, people of color. And it's like war at the national level and the police force at the local level. Are there some good-hearted police officers with their hearts in the right place, especially when they start out? Yes. But is the institution corrupt? Yes. Look what they did to Occupy. Look what they do to our young people, especially our young Black men. Look what they do. It's unconscionable. And there's no excuse for it except for one: to keep the rich richer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Laura, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness! I think we've covered quite a bit.
I think we have. Yeah.
I just hope everybody uses all the power they've got.
Yeah, I like that you said, the way to express your power is to get out there and vote, and we have to do that. I appreciate you doing this interview, and I really appreciate you running for office for the Green Party. You've been such a good representative for us, and you're also the female spokesman for California, the Green Party, right? You have so many accomplishments. It's just
yes. Yeah, it's exciting when KPFA, the local public radio, occasionally calls up, to be able to give that perspective. The perspective that comes from not being corrupted by corporate and money. And so we can talk the truth.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Laura.
Thank you, Mike.
You have a good day.
Yes. Bye-bye.